I want you to think about the word gift for a second. When we hear that word, our brain usually pictures a box.
Right. Yeah, something wrapped in shiny paper, maybe a bow. It's an object.
It's an object, a watch, a kitchen gadget you'll use, like twice. It's a transaction.
Exactly. It's static, just sits on a shelf. It doesn't really do anything once it's unwrapped.
But today, we're digging into a source that just completely flips that whole definition on its head.
It really does.
We're looking at this really fascinating travelogue. It's titled Peak Discovery, A Birthday Journey Through Banff.
And the whole premise is about using a travel experience, specifically a trip to the Canadian Rockies, as a physical, tangible gift.
And it's not just, hey, here's a plane ticket, have fun. This is a very specific case study. The source details a journey taken in July 2025.
A 35th birthday present for the narrator's brother-in-law.
And here's the kicker, right? This brother-in-law, he isn't exactly a globetrotter. He's not that guy with a passport full of stamps.
No, and that is such a crucial detail for this deep dive. The source notes he hadn't really traveled much outside the country before. So the stakes here were, they were incredibly high.
So
You're not just booking a flight for a seasoned pro, you are curating a first impression of international travel.
that's a ton of pressure. Think about it. If you mess this up, if it rains the whole time, or the food's terrible, or the logistics are a nightmare, you haven't just ruined a birthday. You might have convinced this guy that leaving home is just a bad idea.
Right. If the gift becomes a burden, you failed. But what makes this log so interesting to analyze is that it wasn't just about the scenery. It wasn't, look at this mountain.
No.
It was about engineering a specific feeling. The author uses this phrase that I absolutely love, wholesome belonging.
Wholesome belonging. I really want to unpack that because it sounds almost poetic, maybe a little soft.
It does.
But the way they achieved it was actually very tactical. It involved Thai noodles, some very specific board game rivalries.
And getting way too close to grizzly bears.
It's the full spectrum of experience, right? It's a masterclass in travel psychology.
It really is.
So let's set the scene. Trip planned in January 2025 for July. Destination: Banff and Canmore, Alberta. So for anyone who doesn't know, why there?
Well, if you're taking a novice traveler, the source is really clear on the reasoning. They wanted something unforgettable,
Right.
but they needed a specific blend. Banff has that ruggedness, the sheer scale of the mountains, the wilderness, but the towns, like Canmore and Banff, offer modern safety and infrastructure.
It's the soft landing approach to adventure.
Exactly. You don't drop a first-timer into the middle of the Amazon with a survival kit and say, good luck.
No.
You bring them somewhere, the mountains look dangerous and awe-inspiring, but the coffee shops are excellent and the roads are paved.
Let's talk about that timeline, because I think this is a huge part of the gift that people overlook. They booked this in January. They didn't leave until July. That's a 6-month gap.
And that gap is not just dead time. In the psychology of happiness, that gap is actually where a lot of the value is. The source describes it as anticipation crackling in the air.
It's that feeling when you're sitting at work in March, looking at a spreadsheet. It's raining outside, but in the back of your mind, July, the Rockies.
Yeah, there's actually research suggesting the dopamine hit from anticipating a trip can sometimes be even better than the trip itself.
Really?
By booking 6 months out, they essentially gave him 6 months of looking forward to something. As the source says, sharpen the thrill.
It turns the trip into a beacon. So, flash forward, July 2025, the day arrives. And I love how they started this. They didn't just rush to an Uber in a panic. They had a ritual.
They did. They gathered at the host's home first. The source paints a really chill picture here, relaxing on the balcony, waiting for the brother-in-law to show up.
And they lit up a few joints to set the mood.
It sounds recreational, and sure it is, but it also serves a function. It's a physiological signal that says, the grind is over, we are now on island time. Or, I guess in this case, mountain time.
It breaks the pattern. So then it's off to ORD Chicago flying WestJet, 4-hour flight, squeezed in a row, landing in Calgary at 8:30 p.m. Now, this is a critical moment for any trip.
For sure. You land, you're tired, you're hungry.
Yeah.
This is where people get cranky.
But they had a plan. The immediate priority wasn't the hotel or the Wi-Fi password.
It was food.
Specifically Thai food.
Right, noodles and broth. The source notes that Calgary's food scene did not disappoint. And this connects back to that soft landing idea. They didn't go for something super challenging. They went for warm, savory comfort food. It bridges the gap between the stress of travel and the relaxation of the holiday.
It grounds you. And speaking of grounding, let's look at their base camp. They drove an hour out to Canmore to an Airbnb, and the location here, you can tell an experienced traveler booked this.
It wasn't just about the view from the window. It was about what was across the street, a grocery store and a Tim Hortons nearby.
The Canadian Embassy of Donuts.
For anyone listening who is planning a group trip, do not underestimate this. The source says this gave them an anchor of familiarity.
Why is that so important, though? I feel like some people would say, I want to be in a cabin miles from nowhere.
That works for seasoned travelers. But for a beginner, travel fatigue is real. The cognitive load of a new place is high. Knowing you can just walk 3 minutes and get a coffee and a donut, that lowers the cortisol. It makes the mornings easy.
It prevents the hangry arguments at 7 a.m. because no one knows how to work the fancy espresso machine in the rental.
Exactly. This setup meant they started every day with a win.
So they have the snacks, they have the base camp. Now we get to the meat of the trip, the first morning. This is the unboxing of the gift, really.
The reveal. The source says they woke up to a mountain view backdrop that felt unreal. And the reaction of the brother-in-law is the key metric here.
He just stood there.
He just stood there, in awe, before they even put on hiking boots. That's the payoff. That moment validates 6 months of planning.
But they didn't just stand there. They had an itinerary. They hit a place called Spirit Leaf for some essentials.
So let's get into the theme.
And then headed for the big objective, Lake Agnes Tea House.
It's a legendary spot.
Yeah.
But the journey there is interesting, too. The source describes the drive through Banff's valleys as wholesome and quiet.
The author uses a phrase I really liked. It was a moment you want to press into memory.
What does that imply to you?
It implies active mindfulness. You know, often we travel on autopilot, we're driving and thinking about parking or checking the GPS. Pressing it into memory means realizing, hey, this specific light, this silence, this view, this is rare. I need to save this file mentally right now.
Taking a mental screenshot.
Totally. And once they get to the trailhead, the social dynamic shifts. They're climbing. The weather is perfect, 75, 80 degrees. But I have to bring up the hiking shoes bit. This cracked me up.
It's such a distinct detail in the source.
Apparently, every time the conversation lulled, someone would look at the brother-in-law and say, man, I'm glad you brought those hiking shoes.
It's a running gag.
It's so dumb, but it's so real. Why do we do that on trips? Repeat the same joke until it's not funny, and then keep doing it until it's funny again.
It's a bonding mechanism. You're creating a shared language. By the 3rd time you say it, it's an inside joke. By the 10th, it's lore. It keeps the mood buoyant, as the source puts it.
And it distracts from the fact you're walking uphill for miles.
It signals to the group, we are in this together, and we are not taking ourselves too seriously.
And it worked. They made it to the top, Lake Agnes Tea House. They're up there eating sandwiches and protein bars, and the source shifts tone here. It goes from joking about shoes to something pretty profound.
This was the emotional peak of the trip. The author describes a rare alignment. The text says, 3 of us in Canada on a mountain together in this moment.
And they describe it as euphoric.
This is a classic example of what outdoor enthusiasts call type 1 fun.
Okay, break that down for someone who isn't a mountaineer. What is type 1 versus type 2?
So type 2 fun is miserable while you're doing it, freezing cold, exhausted, scared, but it makes a great story later. You enjoy it in retrospect.
Right.
Type 1 fun is just fun. You are happy in the moment, the weather is good, your legs feel strong, the view is incredible.
And that's what they hit, that sweet spot.
Yes. And the alignment they mention is about shared presence. In our normal lives, we're so scattered. Even when we're together, we're scrolling phones, thinking about bills. On that summit, everyone was purely there.
That is the wholesome belonging the author was talking about.
Exactly. But the source is careful to point out that the trip wasn't just about these high peaks. The descent and the downtime were just as critical.
This is the part I related to most, the car ride home. The source calls it easy, meaningful conversation about life.
There's a psychological thing with car rides. We call it side-by-side communication.
Because you aren't looking at each other.
Exactly. If you sit someone down across a table and say, tell me about your life goals, they clam up. It feels like an interview.
It's too confrontational.
But when you're both staring at the road, moving in the same direction, the barrier for vulnerability just drops. The silence isn't awkward. You can talk about heavy things without the pressure of eye contact.
That's a great hack for anyone listening. Just get in a car, drive somewhere, don't look at them.
It works. And that car ride transitioned them back to the Airbnb where the vibe shifted again. They went from deep philosophical mountain talk to Absolute pettiness.
It's a competition.
They grabbed some small sandwiches from the grocery store across the street again, logistics wind relaxed with a few more joints, and settled in for game night. Uno and Scrabble.
And the source is very specific about the Scrabble game.
They had to record it for history. It's vital.
The narrator won, but not by a landslide.
By exactly 1 point.
1 point. You know that led to an argument. Someone definitely challenged a word on a triple word score.
Oh, absolutely. But think about the contrast here. Earlier that day, they were in a state of spiritual awe at Lake Agnes. 6 hours later, they're screaming at each other over a 2-letter word on a cardboard board.
And the source suggests that both of these are essential ingredients to the trip. Why is that?
Because awe is exhausting. You can't sustain it. You need the grounding of the ordinary. Playing Scrabble, eating cheap sandwiches, that's the belonging part.
It says, we can climb mountains together, but we can also just hang out and be idiots together.
That's what solidifies the friendship. It's the unstructured time. That's where the glue sets.
But the Rockies had one more curveball for them. We have to talk about day 2. Because if day 1 was about control and success, day 2 was about humility.
Day 2 changed the scale entirely.
They started with breakfast at a lodge, headed to Lake Moraine. They get on the gondola to go to the summit. Now, usually a gondola ride is pretty passive.
Yeah, you look at the trees, take a selfie. It's a tourist activity.
Not this time. As they were riding up, looking down,
They saw them.
a grizzly bear and 2 cubs.
And not miles away. The source says they were about 20 feet above the bears.
That is, I can hear them breathing close.
The description is so vivid. They watched the bear's raw power. They could see the muscles moving under the fur. It's a reality check.
How so?
Well, on day 1, they conquered the hike. They felt on top of the world. Seeing a grizzly that close reminds you that you are not the conqueror. You are a guest. You're part of the food chain, and you are not necessarily at the top of it.
It's a mix of thrill and total humility, and nature proved who was boss immediately after, right? They get to the top, adrenaline pumping, ready to hike.
And the trail is closed.
Bear activity.
Which, having just seen them, makes total sense. But here is the pivot point. A rookie traveler might get angry here. My schedule is ruined. I wanted the Instagram photo.
But they didn't.
They adapted. Instead of the hike, they just lingered at the overlook. They watched. They let the schedule go.
That's a massive lesson. In a place like Banff, nature dictates the itinerary. Accepting that is part of the discovery. If everything went exactly to plan, it wouldn't be an adventure.
It would just be a checklist. And the source implies this change of plans didn't ruin the gift. In fact, it gave them more time for that reflective conversation. It slowed them down.
So they wrap up the trip, head back to Canmore for a nice final dinner.
A little civilization before the flight home.
Yeah.
And then that final walk to the airport the next morning. The source captures that heavy feeling so well.
It's always hard to leave. But they didn't leave empty-handed. The source summarizes the haul. Pockets full of laughter, stories, and a sense of wholesome belonging.
That's the mission accomplished moment. They set out to give him a gift of discovery, and they gave him a new definition of himself as a traveler.
And we have proof the experiment worked, right? This wasn't a one and done.
Do we?
Yeah, the source mentions that a trip for 2026 is already on the books.
That is the ultimate endorsement. You know, traveling with family, especially in-laws, can go 2 ways. It can destroy relationships or it can forge them.
And if you survive a trip with your in-laws and immediately book the next one, you know you hit the jackpot.
It means the Scrabble argument wasn't fatal.
They probably want a rematch. The brother-in-law's probably studying a dictionary right now.
So as we wrap this up, I want to circle back to the listener. We started by talking about gifts.
Right.
This source material really poses a question. What's the difference between a vacation and a journey of discovery? A vacation is often an escape from your life. You go to a beach, turn your brain off, escape your problems.
But this was different.
This was about adding something to a life. It was about building confidence, building a shared history, creating those core memories. The brother-in-law went home with more than he left with. He went home with a wider world.
And maybe that's the takeaway for you listening. If you have someone in your life who is kind of stuck in their bubble or who hasn't seen what's out there, maybe the best thing you can give them isn't a thing at all.
Maybe it's a plane ticket, a pair of hiking shoes, and the patience to let them discover it at their own pace.
And a really fierce game of Scrabble.
Just remember, if you play to win. Winning by 1 point is the sweetest victory of all.
The pettier, the better. That is all for this deep dive into peak discovery. We'll catch you on the next journey.
Safe travels.